if you have an idea for a TV show, first of all, it's almost impossible to get in the room to even pitch that idea, right? Because you gotta have an agent, and it's weird. And then once you get in the room, if you don't have a bunch of credits and you haven't done a bunch of shit that earned a bunch of people money, it's hard for them to take you serious, and they start looking at their phone, looking off. They're not paying you any attention, really. And then even if you do get a pilot deal, it's even hard for that pilot to get made. And then for that pilot to get made, a lot of people got to decide whether or not it needs to be a series. It's like, it's a whole lot of red tape and just all of this stuff, So I just think this is an opportunity to create a business model also, that will allow new creatives an opportunity to actually do what they do without all of these fucking restrictions and people telling you that your idea is good or bad. Like, who are these people? You know what I mean? Like, and not to say that sometimes they're right, very few times, but sometimes they're right. So it's not to make the networks and the villains, but it does create an option which, because you have options, it forces them to treat you right, is what I'm trying to say. They have to respect the creative a little bit differently when you have other places that you can go.
My name is Michael George.
And I'm Carlo Fox, and we're co-founders of a principal-backed Web3 fund called Wave 7 and an NFT studio called Waggy Beach, which is based on Solana. And we're really excited to have all these guests with us here today.
Today we have the pleasure of discussing Solana in a sea of ETH maxis with all the attention now, after the integration with OpenSea and everyone being able to see just how much volume there is in the space. There's a lot of attention on Sol, so we're excited to, we reached out to Gary, we discussed letting us curate a stage here, and he made it happen, so we're very thankful for Gary.
Yeah, shout out to Gary and to the whole VeeCon family. I think it's really cool that we get to be here and share all the things that are exciting things that are happening in the Solana ecosystem with you, so thanks to all you guys. Now let me just kick off some quick introductions. On stage today, we have three legends. Bartosz Lipinski, Head of Project Engineering at Solana.
He does not work in Raj's basement. That's actually just a rumor.
Yeah, we have Stephen Hess, founder and CEO of Metaplex. And last but not least, we have Carl Jones, the prolific animated television producer. And his project, Bubblegoose Ballers, is quickly becoming the most highly anticipated mint on Solana in 2022, and we're really excited about it.
All right, so let's dive right into it. Bartosz, did you get enough sleep last night, or are you going to fall asleep on stage? Where are we at?
I just need to put my sunglasses, I think. Nobody will know.
So before Solana, I know you worked at Citadel. Can you give us a quick backstory of your time there, and why you ended up getting bullish on Solana, and what kind of brought you here?
Yeah, sure. So it was totally random. So I didn't do anything in crypto until 2 years ago. I was building high-frequency trading systems at different hedge funds, and at some point I decided to take a break and just relax. And when I was taking a break, I was baking bread, doing kombucha, the things that people do during COVID. And at some point, my wife was like, "All right, that's enough. You need to get out of the kitchen." And then I pinged Anatoly, chatted with him about Solana. That was way before Solana was popular, 2 years ago, so it was in top 200. Nobody pretty much knew about it. We had a good vibe, and I was like, yeah, I can do some stuff better than baking bread, and I guess this is how it started.
Sheesh.
Amazing. Stephen, maybe you could give us some insight into Metaplex. For all of you guys that aren't familiar, Metaplex is the standard on which all or most Solana NFTs are built. Maybe you could give us some history into Metaplex, how you got started and where things are going for the protocol.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Solana NFT story really started less than a year ago. So the first Solana NFTs minted through Metaplex were at Bitcoin Miami. It actually felt like one of these conferences where we were the weirdos. It's all right, who's gonna buy a Solana NFT? Really we made a bet on independent artists, the creator economy, which is why we're really excited to be here.
Woo!
Let's go, yeah, let's go. And part of that meant building open source, like making this tech accessible to everyone. We believed that an NFT project shouldn't be a multi-million-dollar production. Like this tech should be available to creators, and leveraging Solana, be able to have a mint for less than $1. So now we're here, less than a year, 12 million Solana NFTs minted using Metaplex and on the NFT standard. And Metaplex on top of the standard provides developer tools, it provides on-chain programming. It's a great place to get started as a developer if you're just interested in understanding how to program on Solana, as well as providing you the tools to then create and introduce new projects.
Love it.
All right, so Carl, first of all, again, it's an honor to be here with you. It's an honor to get to work with you day in and day out. As we were, coming up with the idea to put out Bubblegoose Ballers, there was one story that there were different stories you kept telling about experiences you had in the television industry throughout your career. Essentially, Carl basically is always pushing boundaries, and he's constantly getting pushed back for those boundaries he's pushing. So, how do you see the NFT landscape and what we plan on doing with Bubblegoose Ballers as a way to shift, television culture?
That's a good question. This is weird because I'm used to doing Comic-Con panels, and everybody's usually dressed like Pokemon. Some shit, and you guys look like regular people. It's weird.
We're just collecting virtual Pokemon. We just got NFTs instead.
No, it's interesting. Like right now, it's almost. I feel like it's impossible to have a show like Boondocks to exist. Because not that I think it is. It is hard. It is almost impossible. Like we've tried to do shows that were as edgy as the show was when we first, launched it. And a lot of networks are just really scared. And so. I think this is a way to incubate IP and to create worlds and introduce characters and build a community and a camaraderie around different projects, and then taking that momentum and that leverage and that success and then parlaying it into a network situation, as opposed to having to pitch a show or a series to people that are scared and can't understand the world that you're creating. And the tone is also really important. I think, without all of these creative restrictions, the work can be unapologetically what it is, and you don't have to think about how people are going to receive it. As a matter of fact, what I do love about this, and I'm learning from Bubblegoose Ballers, is that when we introduced it, people immediately had ideas and started designing their own versions of Bubblegoose and creating personalities and stories and all of that stuff helps to mold and shape the world. And so instead of me just coming with a singular idea, it's kind of cool to have the community help to mold and shape what it's going to be.
Absolutely.
So let's see, Steven.
Carlo, do you have something you want to share with the class? Are you busy there?
Carlo, what are you doing?
Yeah, just give me 1 minute, guys.
Are you sweeping the floor on something right now?
Come on, man. You gonna keep that alpha all to yourself?
Bartosz, what are you doing?
I don't know.
Guys, come on, we have a panel, you gotta be like professionals. You can't be like buying NFTs right now.
Yeah, man, we're trying to talk about Solana NFTs right now.
Bartosz, what are you sweeping?
I was thinking of buying some OK Birds.
Yeah, I was thinking about grabbing those sets on Craig. Is that a good decision?
Hell yeah!
Not investment advice.
Yeah, not investment advice.
So Carl, you guys are insane. So Carl, what made you choose Solana? It feels like it would have been really easy to just go do something on Ethereum. Why decide to take, a couple of months ago would have been seen as a tougher path. I guess now with all the new hype, maybe it's not as tough, but why did you decide to do something different?
Well, there's the obvious reasons, like the speed and the low transaction costs and the eco-friendliness of the network. But the other reason is, all my career I've pretty much, when everyone was going right, I would usually go left. So it's honestly, I started my career in a place, Adult Swim was a boutique network at the time. You know, and it wasn't this huge entity. I guess it's become now. And we brought, you know, we brought a world to them, and we built energy around that project, and we made it what it was in a place that, you know, not a whole lot of people knew about. Because we could have went to Fox, or we could have went to, you know, some of the major networks, but you know, it's all about preserving the creativity. And I think Solana, like looking at a lot of the projects that's on Solana now, it feels like that's the future for some innovative ideas. You know, so yeah, and then you know, if we're loud enough, we're gonna draw the kind of, you know, create the type of momentum that we need in order to push this, really propel this into the future and be the leading, you know, network out there. But we just gotta do stuff that's really disruptive, that's really loud, unapologetically what it is, and just not be scared to do what we do.
So basically everything Carl Jones.
Getting pumped. I'm gonna launch a collection now.
So, Stephen, real quick, so Candy Machine. Can you talk to us about it? You know, I feel like a lot of people in this audience are, you know, I have this later, but I think Candy Machine gives us a good segue into network performance issues on Solana, et cetera, because of the beast you guys created. So maybe you could discuss Candy
Those
Machine.
NFTs, man. Everyone wants them. I'm curious actually, like, how many people in the audience are familiar with Candy Machine? The Candy Machine program on Solana? That's amazing. I love to hear it. Okay, so Candy Machine is a program in the Metaplex program library that allows artists, creators, developers to launch these generative collections on Solana. So, like the Catalina whales, the T-Gun. Let's go. Those are released with Candy Machine, and the experience there, you're familiar if you've been in one of these drops. You put a token in. You can use Sol. You can actually use your own native tokens, which we're seeing a lot more. These NFT DAOs using their own tokens to have new mints, and then you get an NFT back, and with different rarities, with different attributes. That program, I mean, Bartosz, when the first Candy Machine was DJ Apes, is that?
No, it was actually Aurori. That's this gaming team from France. And I think it happened, I want to say maybe in September or October last year.
Yeah.
Just so you guys can see how new this all is, right? That Aurori mint, that was supposed to be 5 Sol, but the code wasn't double checked, and it only collected 1 Sol for all 10,000.
Yeah. So there were a series of these drops. I mean, I guess like at what point did it become Candy Machine? Aurori's doing great. Shout out Aurori.
Aurori's killing it.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, right? Like blockchains are forever, right? That's part of what it means to work in the industry. But what we've seen with Candy Machine is now over $900 million in primary sales for NFTs using Candy Machine. That's incredible, right? And what that is that's money going into this creator economy, right? There were a lot of bets that were being made at the time that it's going to be large brands, large sports leagues, and IP deals that were going to define NFTs. But it's the degens, right? Like here we are, it's these Candy Machine collections, and like that's really I think what makes the community special.
Yeah, that's awesome. Bartosz, I mean, obviously we've seen this kind of new influx, which we're really excited about, from the Ethereum community into the Solana community recently. I think there's a stat that a few days ago, Magic Eden sales volume was actually higher than OpenSea sales volume, which was pretty crazy. Either Stephen or Bartosz, do you guys want to talk a little bit about some of the numbers and some of the growth that you're seeing in the ecosystem? And then I think maybe we could segue from there into some of the challenges that's bringing.
I think Steven is better with numbers.
So yeah, that stat is amazing. The Magic Eden team has done a really incredible job in the ecosystem and empowering creators. I think if I'm not mistaken though, I think the threshold they hit was transactions. Okay. I still think the total GMV is larger within Ethereum, but we see the momentum, which is exciting. But ultimately, I think we should draw a big circle around all of that. These are crypto native artists working on different blockchains, building their businesses, building their brands. Like that to me is ultimately what's important. But we are seeing artists really pick up with the performance qualities of the Solana blockchain, and like what Carl was talking about, like pushing that forward and actually doing things that are net new, like what hasn't been done before. That's really the conversation that's happening like within the companies in our ecosystem, is like, how do we bring something to the table that just wasn't there before but is now only made possible?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'd love to hear like some examples in your guys' mind, either that exist now that are being built, or just a vision for the future. What are some things that you can do with NFTs on a on a high performance next generation blockchain that you can't necessarily do on Ethereum?
Yeah, you could even talk about that one we were using today. That's not Pokemon Go, but it's.
We're talking about Stepin? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, is that, who's using Stepin right now? Oh, I love it. Yeah, I think the fitness use cases are amazing. I didn't see that coming, to be honest. Like, they executed really well on a product concept, and it's clearly resonating. I think gaming is a huge new growth vector for the Solana NFT community. In-game items and composability of NFTs, where you have complex objects that you can break down, and items that can be equipped into an avatar. So I think we'll start seeing items freely trading, and like the in-game item economy really emerging on Solana because of that performance characteristic.
Yeah, I think it's exciting, the opportunity for people to purchase NFTs that don't have that much money, right? So I mean, if you think about it, typically most of the NFTs that we're collecting, there's an entry point that's around $200, $250, right? And so I think that for there to be an ecosystem in which people can get into the game and start buying and trading and being part of the ecosystem, and they can do that with low transaction times or fast transactions and low cost, I think is exciting, and I think we're starting to see that the possibilities are really endless.
Bartosz, tell us about that wallet we were talking about the other day. That sounded so cool.
Yeah, sure. So I think for the NFTs, before we switch to the cost, right, both Solana Labs and Metaplex, we are working right now on this interesting protocol that is going to lower the cost of NFTs even more. And we are talking about like 100x, like lowering the cost. So basically minting the NFT on Solana will probably cost around like 100th of a cent, which will open, I think, a lot of use cases around like basically companies paying for minting of the NFTs on the large scale and actually incorporating that into their marketing budget, as well as for gaming, where the gaming engines can just incorporate it into the actual items and then start making composability out of that.
Yeah, on our spaces the other day, Jordan was talking a little bit about some use cases, some real life use cases, and what you'll be able to do with your phone, and how creators are potentially going to be able to offer free NFTs. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we are also working on this protocol that allows you to use NFC tags and build scavenger hunts where you can tap the tags around the city, kind of like a Pokemon Go, but with the actual stickers that you get to build yourself. Which I think will be pretty fun, especially for the artists as they incorporate it into the street art and streetwear, where you get to tell your own story in your own neighborhood about like how did you grow up and how did you come up with the art, and people get to engage with that art, which I think is the most exciting part for me about the NFTs, where both the technology, the artists, and people with money and the communities can collaborate together on building together the stories. Not only in the metaverse, but also in real life.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
I think we should talk about the elephant in the room, right? We've got a network that is high throughput and low cost, but we've been dealing with the occasional outages and network issues. How do we see that getting? How do we see that progressing? It's I'm in a lot of chats with a lot of ETH maxis, and I'm constantly getting clowned on. So, and I'm not a developer, so I would love for you guys to, speak to that and where you see the future going. And, just being friends with you guys I have full faith, but I think it's also good for people to understand where you're seeing this all going.
Sure, I guess so I can talk a bit about that. So the outages that are happening for people that are following it is there's like two categories. One is like there's congestion on the network because there's, for example, a busy mint happening, and that to me, I compare it to just high gas fees. And the difference in Solana is instead of like spending the money on like gas, you need to resubmit your transaction, and that creates congestion because people are resubmitting those transactions frequently. And Metaplex engineers added a bunch of improvements to the candy machine that, for example, the bots that are spamming the network during this like high mints need to pay higher fees, which reduces the positive expected value of those bots and prevents effectively some of the congestion by forwarding the fees from the bots instead of users paying them. So I actually think this one is slightly different. There's like 1 or 2 incidents over the last 12 months where the network needed to be restarted. And that one is slightly different. There were like, for example, bugs in terms of the actual validator code where the transactions were being distributed, and that's just an engineering problem that core engineers in the community is working together with the validators to solve. There's a bunch of them, like we are switching from UDP to Quick protocol to prevent spamming of the network, adding locking around right accounts for your programs that, again, allows smart contracts developers to charge effectively for usage of that contract and localize the congestion within the network. So I don't know if that answered the question.
You guys get that? You guys got that, right? We're going to be quizzing you guys on that later, so.
So wag me or what?
I mean,
Wag me.
I can comment on that a bit too. And what I'll say on the Metaplex side, we see bot attacks as ultimately damaging to the community building process that creators are trying to undergo. We've seen several types of bot attacks on candy machines. You have bots that are just looking for when the candy machine is open, like indiscriminately, and they're just like grabbing one. You have others that are then flooding the candy machine with the intention of stopping others from minting. And then you have what seem to be just kind of like random transaction spam, which we think is, are basically like lazy engineers that are just leaving these bots going for long periods of time because the transactions are so cheap. And so at the program layer, we've introduced these bot taxes that look for these malformed transactions, and then that tax goes to the creator that's running the candy machine, and they can then decide to reimburse if they think the tax was unfairly collected. So I think there will be both application layer solutions and protocol level solutions. What I can say, at the protocol layer, we're confident that these are engineering problems, they're not computer science problems, and so it's still very much full steam ahead for us in terms of growing the amount of NFTs that are getting created and really continuing to accelerate what we're seeing in the market.
yeah, God, I know one of the solutions that you guys have been working on is projects issuing mint tokens. Would you want to talk a little bit about Gumdrop?
Yeah, absolutely. So Gumdrop is a program that allows for mass token redemption at scale. And I think actually we'll see this summer probably the largest token redemption in history using this program. So it's built for scale, and it's built for creators to emulate an airdrop without essentially having to pay for the transaction fees of airdropping on all of those wallets. You have a wallet list, people can come and redeem.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that people don't necessarily realize is that the collections often it's a big kind of financial burden to do airdrops. So I think on the collection side, it opens up a lot of opportunities to continue to provide new, cool, interesting assets to the community and do it in a way where it's not necessarily financially taxing, which is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the use case you're talking about is the whitelist token specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that in the community building process is really important. What we're seeing is like NFT communities building around specific theses or industries, like even just like startups that are launching as NFT projects, and that early community building process through whitelist, I think is critical to that.
I'd like to say that, why are we calling this a whitelist anyway? Who started this whitelist?
Allow this. Apologies. You're right. No, you're right. I apologize. Allow this.
We're going to blacklist next year.
That's a good segue. Carl, let's talk about Bubblegoose. All right, tell us about give us some history into Bubblegoose. I know it well now because we've been spending so much time together, but I think it's a great story.
Yeah, well, it started with me wanting to be a drug dealer, basically. Like all the guys in my neighborhood that were really balling, they wore Bubblegoose coats. And so I always wanted to wear a Bubblegoose coat. You know what I mean? And it was like a status symbol in my community. And you know, so I was always drawing since I could hold a pencil. So I was drawing this character that was it was a goose with a Bubblegoose coat on, right? And that's pretty clever, right? Bubblegoose and a Bubblegoose. But this character just stayed in my sketchbooks for so long. It's like one of those things where, you know, I felt like it needed to live somewhere, maybe as a TV show. I didn't know at the time, obviously, because I didn't know I would be working in animation, but it just always seemed to resonate with me and stay with me. So I had an opportunity to try to set it up as a TV show at Adult Swim. But what happened was we had some creative differences. I had this pilot idea. I wanted to do some shit with Kanye, taking over the world in the future and cutting off everybody's feet that wasn't wearing Yeezys. and he was holding TMZ captive inside of Kim Kardashian's ass. Bubblegoose had to travel through the ass, and there was an asteroid attack of black basketball players that were weird shit, and Adult Swim said, no, we can't do this. And so I tucked it back in my sketchbook, and I went home. And then you know, I got introduced to the NFT space, and I thought, what a great place to do this outlandish shit. You know.
Yes. And I think it was Ben who from Waggy Beach who was kind of red pilling you on NFTs a while back, like almost a year now, or maybe over a year. And then as you saw what we kind of did with the Catalina whales, I think you ended up calling Ben and saying, hey, I think I got something great for it.
Yeah, and honestly, because I didn't get it at first, you know what I mean? Like, it just took me a second, and finally when I did get it, it was really at a good time too, because I was bumping my head against a wall trying to get the networks to it's hard when you're trying to pitch a show. You're trying to pitch something that's lived in your head for a while to a bunch of executives who have no idea what you're talking about. They have no context for what it means to you and where it comes from. And you have to convince them that this is something that the world will want to see, and it's really difficult to do. So I thought, well, if this is an opportunity where I can create this world with the community, you know, build the idea with the community and allow them to also benefit from it. And we together can walk into a network, well, you know, symbolically, we can walk into a network and pitch it as a community, because now we have a bunch of people supporting this. We have a proven track record, and not only that, if they don't want to give us the creative freedom that we want, we don't necessarily have to use their platform either. You know, and the last thing I'll just say is that creative freedom, but also just freedom in general of not having to conform to everything that they want you to do just because they're cutting a check. You know what I'm saying? And that I'm tired of compromising, you know, our vision, our creative vision, and it's dumb, you know.
I think that's something when we started having our early conversations that we were really excited about, and we started kind of thinking about like what is the game, you know, how do we kind of take this from A to Z, right? And I think we started talking about like, you know, we want to create the new Pokemons of the world, but we want to do it backwards, right? We don't want to like make some piece of content, have people passively consume it, and charge them money for it. You know, we want to start with a base of an idea, right? That's something that me and Carl spent a lot of times talking about. Is we want to start with the base of a creative idea, find people that are drawn towards that, and then work with them collaboratively to understand where it goes. And I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit, but I think that was like a really kind of interesting aha moment for us, in that like, it's not even all on you, the creator, to decide where this thing goes, right? It's like, and I think that one thing that like, you know, Carl hit me up like a week after we announced Bubblegoose and was like, yo, this is crazy, bro. I'm almost like scared at how excited people are about it. And then I think from there it's grown into like, we've seen that like Carl had this base vision that he's had like since he was a child, But then that has kind of expanded into mean a lot of different things to different people. So I don't know if you have any ideas on that or you want to talk more about that, but I think that was a really kind of inspiring thing for us.
Yeah, it is interesting because we introduced the character to the world, right? Normally we would flesh out an entire show from season 1 to season 2 sometimes, and all the characters are fleshed out, the world is fleshed out, you know exactly where you're going with the show. But in this case, we just introduced the character and we let the people determine what that character means to them, which was really eye-opening for me because I didn't even realize how many opportunities were being left on the table until I saw the input from other people. Because you put a show out on TV, you don't really get it's almost like doing stand-up. Like you tell a joke and you get an immediate response from the audience, so you know if it's working or not. Well, in animation, it takes 2 years sometimes to make a complete season before you know your shit is fucked up. So that's really dope that I can find out in a couple of minutes after I post something. But no, it's really I just love the synergy, and it's just a nice new way to create content, with the community,
Yeah, I think that like a lot of times when we talk about like what does it mean for the community to be involved in the creation of this stuff, and obviously it's like, does the price go up, or everybody wants the price to go up, but I think that there's also creatively like so much more to it, and we're just starting to kind of understand the tip of the iceberg of like what, these community-driven ecosystems mean. It's like, it means like we don't have to be beholden to the networks, we don't have to be beholden to like the suits in like what we do or don't do. We now have a channel for raising money and creating this stuff. But I think those are kind of the really exciting things that we're uncovering right now. But we're also starting to realize that it's like on a creative level, we don't even know where this can go, right? We don't even know what it means when Carl Jones makes a character, puts it out to the community, and all these people that he never could have met, he never could have introduced into a writer's room, start coming up with ideas and bringing it to us, and he's able to filter which ones come and become reality. And I think that it's really exciting to see where that'll go. And that's something that I hadn't even spent much time thinking about until we got into this process. But it's really exciting to see you.
Yeah, can I say one more thing about that?
Yeah,
so the other thing is, if you have an idea for a TV show, first of all, it's almost impossible to get in the room to even pitch that idea, right? Because you gotta have an agent, and it's weird. And then once you get in the room, if you don't have a bunch of credits and you haven't done a bunch of shit that earned a bunch of people money, it's hard for them to take you serious, and they start looking at their phone, looking off. They're not paying you any attention, really. And then even if you do get a pilot deal, it's even hard for that pilot to get made. And then for that pilot to get made, a lot of people got to decide whether or not it needs to be a series. It's a whole lot of red tape and just all of this stuff, So I just think this is an opportunity to create a business model also, that will allow new creatives an opportunity to actually do what they do without all of these fucking restrictions and people telling you that your idea is good or bad. Like, who are these people? You know what I mean? Like, and not to say that sometimes they're right, very few times, but sometimes they're right. So it's not to make the networks and the villains, but it does create an option, which, because you have options, it forces them to treat you right, is what I'm trying to say. They have to respect the creative a little bit differently when you have other places that you can go, so, yeah.
Right, it doesn't mean that all the creatives are going to be good. It doesn't mean that every idea makes it, but what it means is that the people get to decide what's good and what's not.
Right.
Yeah. And you know what, right now we have 2 minutes left, so I'd love to kick it off to everybody if anybody has final thoughts. Or unless you have another question.
Yeah, I think like what we're seeing in the Solana ecosystem are the beginning of these brands and these communities. Like, I think you can look at NFTs and you can see them as art and collectibles, but if you go deeper, these are really new social groups and communities that are being built, and we're just so early. Like, I think these are the starts of stories that these communities will decide where they go. And we have NFT projects that are like running network infrastructure. Like, there's so many different vectors here. So I think really looking forward to seeing what each of those ideas and those communities kind of really make with the opportunity.
Absolutely.
From my side, if you want to talk about smart contracts on Solana, how to build, how to deploy your NFTs, I will be around walking. You can just stop me and we can chat.
Amazing.
I was just gonna say, check out Bubblegoose Ballers. Bubblegoose, next one.
We appreciate you all coming. Hope to see you on Solana soon.
Shout out to VeeCon, shout out to Gary, and all our